Welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA, and thank you for joining us again. This morning we'll be having a conversation on flood insurance and utilization of Ecological Fund as it affects flooding disaster in parts of the country. But here is a background report put together by our correspondent Ibrahim and Hamidu.
Nigeria has been hit hard by devastating floods in recent years. The 2012 disaster was particularly devastating, claiming over 400 lives, displacing 1.3 million people, and causing a staggering $17 billion in damages. And just this year, many in Maiduguri had to relocate to temporary shelters due to flooding. So what is being done to prevent these disasters? The Ecological Fund, established back in 1981, aims to reduce ecological problems nationwide through timely mitigation. It is funded by 1% of the Federation account, but despite its good intentions, the fund's effectiveness has been questioned, especially after recent floods. Flood insurance is also crucial in protecting citizens from financial losses. Unfortunately, Nigeria's flood insurance penetration remains low. To address this, the government has launched a national strategic plan of action for flood prevention and management, but implementation is still ongoing. The federal government has taken some significant steps to address flooding. 1. Creating a wall of trees across 11 states to prevent desertification. 2. Promoting alternative sources of energy. And 3. Providing relief materials to flood victims. Nigeria has also pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by the year 2030. That is a step in the right direction, but the country must prioritize adaptation measures to mitigate climate change impacts. A flood alert has been issued by the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency to all states contiguous to the River Benue system, effective Tuesday, September 17, 2024. This warning comes as Cameroon's Ladgo Dam begins regulating water release due to heavy rainfall. Join us as our guests discuss the essential priorities for the Ecological Fund, flood insurance, and adaptation measures to protect people and the environment.
Thank you, Ibrahim Dynamizo, for that background there. And we already have our guests seated in our studio to discuss flood insurance and Ecological Fund. Let me introduce Dr. Owolabi Abbas, is the Chairman, Chartered Insurance Institute of Nigeria, Abuja branch, and he's also the Managing Director, Hans Swartz Insurance Brokers Limited. Is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Registered Brokers and an associate member of Chartered Insurance Institute of Nigeria. Dr. Abbas, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Also joining us in the studio, I have with us Pastor Femi Bejide. He's the Director, Operational Hydrological, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. NISA, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay.
All right, we also have joining us for this conversation and from our Maiduguri studio, Professor Abubakar Mungono. He's joining us, as I said, from our Maiduguri studio. Professor Mungono is a professor of geography and director, Center for Disaster Risk Management and Development Studies at the University of Maiduguri. Professor Mungono, thank you for joining us. And we do know that the university also had its own share of the flood.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, let's just kickstart our conversation with Dr. Abbas. Just give us an explanation of what, when we talk about flood insurance, what exactly are we talking about here? And how does it apply to the situation we have right now on Earth?
Well, thank you very much. When we talk of flood insurance, flood generally is an exclusion in insurance. It's part of insurance that is not covered. The insurance intentionally not covered it because of the fact that they want to protect themselves. Protection in the sense that they know that when there is flood, it used to be catastrophic. For example, like what happened in Maiduguri now, about 70% of the properties and human being was seriously destroyed. So that's the reason why insurance on their own part used to exclude all such from their policies. Flood, earthquake, tornado, and all of them is an exclusion from insurance policies. But at the same time, it's an exclusion. It's not that it's not covered. There's a difference from exclusion and not covered or not insurable. Everything in insurance is insurable. It's a matter of going to insurance company, I want this policy. I want to insure flood. In case there is flood in my state, in my community, or anywhere, I want to insure it. Insurance company will not package it. They will tell you the terms and the conditions, the clauses and the premium that you are going to pay. And in Nigeria, because many of us were insurance illiterate, we run away from insurance. Despite the fact that the cost is very small amount of money. The highest premium the highest rate that we have is 5% for motor insurance. Every other one, 0 point something, 0 point G, 0 point that, 0 point that. But many people, they run away from it because they are illiterate. They are not aware of what insurance is all about. They don't care about insurance. So it's a matter of going to insurance company. I want to do flood insurance. And they will package it for you. They will give you all the condition. And from there, they cover it. And if there's any claim, they have to pay. If there's any claim, they just have to pay. So that's just it.
I just want to follow up on what you just said. You said people do not take to insurance because they don't have enough knowledge. Is it that they don't have enough knowledge, or is it because that most of the time the claims that people make, the insurance don't honor them?
Well, thank you, sir. I'm not aware of any claim that you make to insurance company that they don't honor, except if that claim is fraudulent. If it's not fraudulent, there is no way you present the claim to insurance company that they will not pay. Let me give you an instance of motor insurance. In the proposal form that you filled, they will ask you who are going to drive your car. You will say myself, my wife, and 4 children. But when the accident happened, they will give you another form, claim form. Who drove the car at the time of accident? You say my wife's brother. You have breached the contract. But you will not know at the initial stage what you filled. You don't read it. You just throw it somewhere. So when the claim comes, they give you another form to fill. You put somebody's head there that was not in the proposal form. Meanwhile, they have all your documents in their file. So they look at it. They discover that you put your wife's brother that drove at the time of claim. You have breached the contract. So with that, you don't say insurance doesn't want to pay me. Oh, they don't do this, they don't do that. It's not like that. It is you that will breach the contract. So that's a simple example. So I'm not aware that you have any claim that insurance company will say they are not going to pay.
Okay.
So
okay.
that's just it.
Dr.
Anyway,
Abbas,
we'll get back to that.
Dr. Abbas, thank you.
Okay.
You have raised a number of issues that will need to be interrogated further. You have talked about exclusion of flood insurance from insurance policy, but it could be covered. You have talked about claims, which of course arising from the Demola's question. There are quite a number. You have also talked about knowledge gap in all of this. But I just want to ask Pastor Femi Bijide, really, before we even talk about whether or not, the do's or don'ts about the insurance against, flooding and all of that. From your perspective, do we really need a flood insurance? Is it necessary?
Yes, it's a necessity. Flood insurance. If we understand what insurance is all about, it's just for the days of danger. And when we are talking about the issue of flooding, most especially in Nigeria, understanding the geographical position of Nigeria, I've said it oftentimes, flood is imminent because of the strategic position of Nigeria. So when you know that something is definite, actually insurance is just against the day of adversity. And now when you know that that adversity again will surely occur, then there is need for insurance. Nigeria, for example, one, we have two major rivers, River Niger and River Benue. And River Niger, to Nigerians, they should know, is a transboundary rivers, traversing all about 9 countries and entering Niger before entering into Nigeria. So, and we know that rivers flow from the high altitude to the low altitude. That means all these countries, right from Futajanon Island, it's coming and emptying in Nigeria. And River Benue also is a transboundary river, also coming from the highland from Cameroon, entering into Nigeria, also coming to deposit water in Nigeria. Okay. And again, Nigeria is a big country, so we have a wide, big area space. So rain also falling profusely and with high intensity in a very large area, a lot of water collected again in Nigeria. So definitely, there is no way, if it's not properly and intentionally, aggressively managed, there will be flooding, loss of life and properties every year.
NISA just released early warning to some states that are, downstream Lago, those that will
not early warning, red alert.
Red alert warning.
Yes.
Yes, those that will be impacted by this consequential release of water from the Lago Dam. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 states.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, in your presumed measures that these states, are expected to take, yes, is there any place for flood insurance at this moment?
Well, we have predicted. The first primary prediction came early in the year, either February ending or March ending, annual flood outlook. That's the first document NEMA took to go and prepared for their emergency relief and things like that. Now, when it comes to red alert like this, that shows also that this is imminent. That's why I say it's not an early warning. Early warning have been given about 5-6 months ago.
Okay, so this is imminent.
It's imminent. So
They should
that
be prepared for it.
Yes. Just like in countries, they say you put the army on red alert because, there's an external aggression and things like that. It's imminent. We are in contact with Lagdo Dam. That is coming from River Benue now, from Wuroboki. That's our first major station where we measure waters entering Nigeria from Cameroon through River Benue. And right now it's getting to the red alert. So that's why we have to quickly issue that alert from Wuroboki station at Adamawa State. Before getting to Lokoja, we have 14 stations on the River Benue and tributaries measuring the rising water level. Every day we get this. The same thing also with River Niger. About a month ago, we also issued a red alert on River Niger, and it has gone down the water level. So all this flooding we have been witnessing up till now is caused by precipitation, rainfall. Okay. It's not river flooding. It's not. But now, river flooding is about to start. So we have move from the floodplain. Move from the floodplain. Don't even build there. We have problems with that over time. So when people say government is not doing this, they are. Attitudinal issues, also problems are also there. You see, this is our traditional home, we don't want to move and things and like that. So now we have told them these states will be flooded. No doubt about it. Like Bayelsa State, whether you like it or not, just because of the way geographical positioning, like Jigawa State. Jigawa State is on a flat plain, the whole state. So when rain falls, there is no what to call runoff. No, it has to be sinking down. But when it gets to a point, the ground is saturated, it cannot take more water again. It stays on the surface. And
I asked this question just to find out if the consequential damage would require insurance.
It will, in a nutshell. It will. But the question is that are people patronizing or see the need to do that? All in the mind of most ordinary Nigerians, like we call it now, palliatives. Palliatives. Waiting for government to give. And it have even been politicized. And that is the problem we are having. Where there is no flooding, they will wish that there will be flooding. And so where there are floodings, they will exaggerate because they want to get things. These are all the problems.
Anyway.
The money we are spending in managing it, we can have used to prevent it. Like in our own agency, NISA, we prevent. Insurance also is prevention.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Pastor Bejide. Now let's go to our Maiduguri studio where we have Professor Munguno. Professor, I want you to tell us exactly your experience during this flood disaster we just had in Maiduguri, because I know that is where you are situated, and what exactly is the current state of the situation right now before you talked on this flood insurance.
Thank you very much again. Well, for now, the waters have receded and people are going back to their houses, although there are sections of the town that are still waterlogged, that water has covered, especially those areas that are very close to the streams, and then very low-lying areas. So as it is, people are going back. But my experience is that, and it's a very, very sorry state we are in, the amount of displacement is so massive. People have lost property. Lots of people have lost their lives. At the moment, I'm not sure if we know exactly how many people we've lost, but the damage is quite colossal. Beyond that, the other issue is that of feeding. People are now hungry. The state government and other stakeholders are up and doing, trying to provide food and other necessities of life to residents of Maiduguri. But this has also been complicated by the situation, prevailing economic situation that people find themselves. So a lot of people who are not supposed to have, ideally be called displaced people because of sheer hunger, sheer deprivation, have joined those people who have become flood victims and are now feigning themselves as flood victims. So they have occupied the camps provided by government to flood victims. They have flooded the streets. They are now all over the city looking helpless. So it's very difficult to distinguish the real flood victim from somebody who is economically deprived, who is already facing this economic challenge of life. So people have left their homes and joined the streets to go and anticipate the relief distribution. And that's what is driving them. So it's a very sorry state of things that we find ourselves. I share with the state government in this problem that we face. And so I don't know really how this this quantum of issues all joined into one basket can be unbundled and resolved in a manner that is as quickly as possible.
Okay, Prof. You are a professor of geography and disaster risk management. And I'm wondering if you look back to disaster, management measures. We've had, of course, a dedicated fund for that, especially disaster that has to do with climate change, and flooding is one of them. How would you assess, our disaster risk management so far with regards to flooding?
Well, Pastor has said some part of what needs to go into this question. The issue of flood, outlook, annual flood outlook released by NISA. Every year we have this. It's a yearly ritual. We also have NIMET, the seasonal climate prediction that are being rolled out every year. But beyond this, there is the need for better preparedness from the state and local government authorities. They seem to tell us that yes, they do what is right, what is supposed to be done. But there is what we see that is going there. There is a lot of gaps, coordination issues that we need to fix all at once. For instance, you will see that this flood outlook, this the annual climate prediction doesn't go deep down into the states and the local government. So what they now do is that perhaps they just come at the regional level to say, okay, we roll it out at the regional level. In the northeast, you come to either Maiduguri, or you go to Yola or Gombe, and then you say, okay, call stakeholders, and then release the information. This is what is done. And I'm not sure of the NISA flood outlook, whether that is also what is done. But I know that the seasonal climate prediction from going to Abuja now has been decentralized to the 6 geopolitical zones, which is supposed to be done at every state and at every local government. Well, I understand that NIMET may not have the resources, but it is also important for the states to take up that, for the local governments to take up this very important responsibility of trying to spread the information about preparedness. This is what is impending. This is what is coming our way. So people in this area, please do not live in this particular environment because of the risk nature of it. But again, beyond that, going beyond just the prediction and outlook and other things, there are practical steps the states and federal government also need to take. For instance, the issue of the dredging of some of the rivers and even our dams. Of course, one of the issues that became very prominent is in this Maiduguri flood is the issue of the siltation of the dam. And of course, the two rivers that drain the city. It's quite obvious that both the two rivers and the Alo Dam itself have all been silted, and there is very serious need for dredging of these rivers and then the silting of the dam. So who is going to do that? Where are the funds to do that? Perhaps this is going to be discussed in this.
I actually wanted you to talk about, because yes, NISA and NIMET, I mean, you would agree that they are really trying their best in bringing out these outlooks. But it is the management of the disaster that's really what we are focusing on, how the disaster that happens is managed. And we're looking at two basic measures, the Ecological Fund and a new form that has been suggested, flood insurance. And I'm asking you, so far we've had the Ecological Fund, which is a dedicated fund for managing disasters, including flooding. And I'm saying, as a disaster risk management, how has this fund, been utilized to manage flooding disaster?
I think this is one of the fallouts of this recent flooding that we have in Maiduguri. And I'm sure I've followed the discussion, both online and offline, about what are we doing about the Ecological Fund. And people have asked questions. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to make our leaders more and more accountable. It is very apparent, unfortunately, that from the feelers, there is little that has gone into actually say that we are prepared using the ecological funds, that state governments, that the local governments have drawn over the past nearly 30 or more years. So yes, every year the state governments and local governments go to Abuja. I mean, every month they collect the ecological fund. What have they been able to do? I think it's a very sorry state of affairs. I'm not sure if this is used in the way and manner that we expect. I will give you an example. For instance, I know that in the education sector, there is the TED fund, for instance, in the sector that I belong. For every project that we see, there is a logo of TED fund once it is funded by the TED fund. Where do we see this happening in terms of the ecological fund? There isn't. I know some 25, 30 years ago, some of the areas where the ecological funds were used in erosion control, I'm talking of the city of Maiduguri. I've seen signboards clearly labeled ecological fund intervention and all that, especially along some of the rivers that drain the city, where erosion was eating up into the city. So, but we don't see that happening now. Where is it? Is it the millions of trees that we are told every year the governors and the local government chairmen go to say they have planted? If you plant 1 million trees, we should see at least, even if 10,000 are surviving. For your information, 1 million trees, even if you used the ecological fund to plant 1 million seedlings, that's a very massive amount of land. So if you give an allowance of, for instance, 5 meters interval between one tree seedling and another, that should give you a conservative estimate of an area of about more than 2,000 square kilometers. That's a whole lot of land. Most local governments in Nigeria do not have that land mass. 1 million trees. And every year we are told some of the governors and the chairmen will go on to plant 1 million trees, 2 million trees, and all that. We don't see the trees. Where have they gone? So it is time we begin to ask questions about where these funds and how these funds are being spent. We need to go and look at the books, how the monies are released, where they have been channeled into, who is responsible, and all that. And before I forget, I think it's also important to point out here that the critical role the civil society is playing in other sectors, we need to see it in the aspect of environment, trying to hold leaders to account. You see, unfortunately, the civic space, as we know now, is not, I mean, the environment sector is not very present like we have in other areas where you have health-related, education-related civil society organizations trying to hold the government to account. We don't have enough of them in the environment sector. So it is important now for us to have civil society actors who will push for, this accountability of funds released through the Ecological Fund, but even going beyond that to the whole of the ministries of environment, both at the federal and the local government level. So it's so important that accountability issues come to the fore, especially looking at the situation of the environment that we find ourselves in the north, in the south, everywhere across the country, we face one ecological challenge or another. But it is this flooding now that is now taking a lot of our attention because it is the issue of the moment. So we need to discuss it. We need to see how much money actually is released to every local government, every state government, and what have they been able to do from the time that they are supposed to have received the money up to the spending to the last kobo.
Points there. The need for us to hold our leaders accountable, for all these funds that are being released. Right now, I think we have the fourth guest who has joined us via Zoom. Kiton Oluwabuyi is the lead environmental and social safeguard consultant, Environmental Harmony Limited. Kiton Oluwabuyi, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Okay. Good morning, all.
Okay, I guess she's still getting set. Well, while we also wait for her to join us, let's come back to the studio. And Dr. Abbas, let's get back to you now. We have been talking about this, the flood situation. You just heard Prof. talked about the ecological fund there and the management and the need for us to hold our leaders accountable for the management of this fund and how we can address it. Let's come back to the flood insurance now, because it's really a big challenge. The issue of communication gap, not adequate information about what people need to do concerning insurance and all that. So what types of flood insurance policies are available in Nigeria, and how can people access them?
Well, thank you very much. Flood insurance in Nigeria, I'm not aware that we have any presently.
None.
I'm not sure. But there is one managed by FEMA, National Flood Insurance Program. It's being managed by FEMA. So my expectation is for the FEMA, the government, to call some insurance company together, work on flood insurance, and design a policy that will be suitable for that kind of program. Like the problem we used to have in Nigeria is we don't prepare, we don't get prepared. It is until when the thing happened that you see everybody now running a task, what can we do, what can we do, what can we do? All this flood insurance that I mentioned, flood has been there from time immemorial. Mm-hmm. It has been happening in some countries. If not because of the climate change, we will not have it as serious as we have now. For example, summer in the European country now is very, very hot. And here is cold. Before, we don't experience this kind of cold here. That summer in another country used to be a little bit cold, but not so hot as it is now. So we in Nigeria, we don't get prepared for things until when that thing happens. That is why we will not be running a tasketa. This program, National Insurance Flood Program, that is the federal government have at FEMA, I think it's supposed to be working. They're supposed to call 1, 2, 3, 4 insurance companies together to work with some brokers and design, in case if it happens, what are we going to do? Like Pastor said earlier, it has been politicized. Mm-hmm. People want money, they want to get money from it. Even people that doesn't have flood, they were praying that the flood come on so that you can get money.
Just like the prof said.
Just like the prof
those
said.
that
Also.
were not affected are even streaming down to
just,
the
just
IDP
to get the
camps
flood
all
and
that.
get the money. But if the federal government, if the government do what it's supposed to do, I'm very sure even the money that we are donating now, people are donating from left, right, and center. There will not be need for donation. FEMA and insurance company will be supposed to do compensation, pay claims now to those people that are affected. But there is no flood insurance before, so there is no anybody can pay any claim. And the FEMA that have their own program, I'm not sure whether the program is working effectively.
So why would the insurance company wait for government? Can't the insurance body itself, come up with something like flood insurance and educate the people and encourage the people that you need to take this, because of all this information coming, out from NISA and, NEMA, for you to be able to mitigate, the effect of this, flood.
Thank you very much, sir. The conventional insurance, the most popular insurance,
Yes.
in Nigeria, we don't do it. I think you understand. For instance, put down 1,000 Nigerians that have car. How many of them do motor insurance? And according to Nigeria, at 1945, before you put a car on the road, it must get third-party insurance. How many Nigerians have motor insurance? Now, you're not talking of flood, earthquake, and so on and so forth. Who cares? Many people doesn't care. They don't bother. All they needed is palliative, like Pastor said, what they will eat, and that's all. They don't care to protect their properties. They are not even aware that this my property could be threatened by flood or earthquake. There are some countries that are prone to earthquake. You have not experienced it in Nigeria. But it is when it happens, bam, that we're supposed to do insurance, we're supposed to do this, we're supposed to do that. But if government supports insurance in Nigeria by having a law that says everybody must insure.
Because how come it's so prominent in other climes, especially in Europe, America, and all that, and here in Nigeria you next to nothing about knowledge about insurance. Over there you have your health insurance, you have car insurance,
All
you
the
have
classes.
all different classes of
Yes.
insurance, but here. You don't create awareness enough.
We do.
Yeah. I mean, we hardly hear you. I mean, Claire.
We do.
No,
I don't know.
I think
So
I think
what?
that's a very fundamental issue,
Yeah.
Demola, and it's born out of experience, like you said earlier on, experience of the attitude, bureaucracies, and issues that has to do with the process of insurance itself. But let's even leave that aside.
Okay.
I'm really interested, and surprisingly too, that you talked about the existence of a national flood policy
Insurance,
program,
yeah.
flood insurance policy program
Yes.
within NEMA.
FEMA. It's
FEMA.
Okay.
NEMA.
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 Within NEMA
Yeah.
itself. Now, what does that cover? Because I'm sure a lot of people are not aware. What does it cover, and how is it supposed to operate?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
The NEMA, they have a department where that policy is supposed to be operating. But it's like the department is not functioning.
Oh.
It's not functioning at all. Many people are not aware of it.
Are you categorical that it's not functioning? Are you saying that it is not functioning? Do you know that it's not functioning for sure?
If it is functioning, they are supposed to be championing what is happening now by paying claims.
Okay.
It's like we didn't hear anything from NEMA. It's only some Nigerians that are giving donations, supporting. NEMA is supposed to be in the forefront now. Say, okay, don't worry, don't bother. You have insurance cover you here. Oh yeah, take this amount of insurance. Even those people that are donating, they can tell them, don't worry about donation. You can do donation for some other thing. This one, we have the fund for it. But we didn't hear NEMA from anywhere. Even me, I was not aware of that NEMA program before. It was recently when there was a flood here and there. I was now thinking, government should be doing something insurance. Instead of, government is not philanthropic now. They should be doing something on insurance. instead of waiting till when the thing comes and they start giving money. You know, the same thing used to happen to our markets. Many markets supposed to be insured, but they will not do insurance because they knew if there is fire, government is bringing money.
But Dr. Abbas, are you aware of what this particular flood insurance program within NEMA is supposed to cover?
What it's supposed to cover is when there is claim, they're supposed to pay that claim, settle them.
Who will bring up the claims?
The claims.
The people that are affected.
Okay.
The people that are
How
affected.
would they know that there is an insurance covering them for them to be able
Because
to?
there was the NEMA did not tell anybody, they're just quiet about it. Even when insurance company doesn't know.
That is where
The journalists, you journalists, you don't know. Many people know. I go into it.
That's where the knowledge gap is there.
You know,
That is
okay,
it.
now, okay.
Sorry, Demola. You know that part of the ecological fund.
Yeah.
That's between 2.3 or 3%.
Yes.
You know, goes to NEMA.
Yeah.
Yes, goes to NEMA. In fact, the lion's share goes to NEMA.
Yeah.
So if NEMA partakes of the ecological fund, and the flooding insurance
Yes.
is a program under NEMA, it means that
This is the time they're
you know,
supposed to come out.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah.
unfortunately, NEMA is not
NEMA
here.
is there,
to
but
talk.
you see, we had to say this because we invited the officials from the ecological office, to be part of our conversation. Unfortunately,
None
we
of
didn't
them
see
is
it.
here.
Yes, we didn't get any feedback.
Okay, let's go to our Zoom guest. I think our Zoom guest is there now. Kiton Oluwa Buyi is the lead environmental and social safeguard consultant, Environmental Harmony. Kiton, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
All right, thank you for joining us. I know you've been listening to our conversation so far. It's on flood insurance and ecological fund. Now, we've talked about this issue of flood insurance and the management of ecological fund. I just want your thought about this, the challenges of this ecological fund management and how it can be addressed, going by all the challenges that we are facing now, this flood disaster, the victims and people, coming up to donate money and all that. The ecological fund, actually, it's meant, to solve that, problem. Why are we getting it wrong?
I'll say there are three issues that we need to look into. I listened to the insurance professional, Dr. Abbas. There is the NICOM. NICOM is supposed, not only NEMA, NICOM has responsibility to join and manage that national flood insurance program. That program, I am not in NEMA, and so like you said, we can't speak for them, but that is in existence. The requirement, as best as I know, as of last year, just out of interest on flood issues, was that you need a certification. You need a certification that you are in a flood risk environment. But the situation is that who is mapping the flood risk environment? Take Abuja, for instance. From Gwarimpa to Uye, we have increased even the issues of urban runoff. And by that urban runoff, people are exposed. Developers are doing their work, but who has mapped the flood risk areas for them, which is the responsibility of the Environment Ministry. However, even if they do the mapping, who is listening? Who is enforcing it? These are key issues. And an insurance company wants to know that the building code, that you have built a standard house. It wants to be sure that you have certification that you have made your house flood-proof from the beginning. You are not, the essence of insurance is not to support mediocrity and substandard. However, these are key issues. When you now ecological fund, it was set for ecological and environment issues across the 36 states. There are challenges, and the major challenges I have seen over the years, having been a staff of the same Ministry of Environment till I retired, is simply because coordination is weak. Coordination is weak, and so the fund seems to be going into baskets. And again, that's a Nigerian issue. that we can't even start talking about here. But with flood insurance, the key thing is that if your estate, for instance, Wuye, some areas in Idu are in prone areas. I can just say, no, because this is an area I have worked upon. When the developers make such structure, make constructions, they have received certification to develop. But who did tell them that they should flood-proof their houses? And then suddenly the flood comes. It doesn't just come anyhow. There's always a planning. Even when it's natural, there is a warning. We know it's going to rain today. So did we prepare for the rain? If you didn't carry your umbrella, then you have a lot to answer. There are human-induced problems for flood, which is mainly the runoff. In Abuja, for instance, the runoff is a major one. We are removing the forest and the vegetation, and we are increasing the urban runoff. What was not happening suddenly will start happening, and that's human-induced nature of flood. So these things don't happen. It's not anything, but we are not prepared to work things in a due process. I don't want to talk too much. That's just my view.
But
Baby,
you,
you
you have
spoke.
to talk. You have to talk.
You have to keep talking, actually,
Oluwagboye.
because we need it.
Yes, we actually need your input, and I'm just wondering because again, falling back on the ecological fund, which is shared amongst you have NEMA, you have the Great Green Wall. You have, that's within the federal government, you have the Great Green Wall, you have the Northeast Development Commission, of course you have the Ecological Office itself. All of them share, part of the Ecological Fund. Now, the flood policy insurance, which is domiciled within NEMA, right now, we don't know what it's been used. We don't know whether it's functional, whether it's operational, or whether it's just dormant. But what we know is that we are not seeing evidence of utilization. So would you, Mrs. Oluwagboye, would you then say, okay, if this is not working, let's float a standalone flood insurance policy?
Even if we float a standalone flood insurance policy, the key thing is, let's use the vehicle. You insure a vehicle or a house for whether, let's use the vehicle. You insure the vehicle because you have a car. If it's a very new car, you probably really want to be sure that it doesn't get damaged, and if it does get damaged, you don't have headache. If it's a very old car, you'll probably be thinking there's no big deal. But whatever it, whether new or old, if you are passionate that you don't want to go through the stress of arguments on the road and have your insurance to back you up, you will do it. Like Dr. Abbas said, many people will rather do they have to go through it? The same thing with life insurance. A number of people feel they're wasting their money if they are paying that monthly, yearly premium they ask them to pay, and says whatever will happen. So there is that real need, as all of you said, for awareness. But whether it is standalone or domiciled in NEMA, the key thing is that what makes it, what is the guarantee that you have it? There are three major criteria I am aware of. One is that you are in a flood risk zone. How do I know if I am a house owner, I purchase a house or I purchase a land, that I'm in a flood risk? It is true that I can see wetland. It is true that by my understanding I see river. Does that make the place a flood risk zone? These are questions that many people don't know, and it's a question of awareness. By my understanding and experience in environment, I can tell a flood risk area, but that's not for everyone. The second criteria for insurance is that your building which is your property. You see, the kind of building, if you are building in a flood risk area, there is the standard building code. And with that standard building code, that is certified. Who gives it? This is what they require so that they can pay the premium. Because if you build, let me give a mud brick kind of house, the typical one we have in villages, in a flood-prone area, automatically wait for the flood, he will lift it and carry it away. There's no question about it. Even if it's a cement block one, he will, because the way the flood works is that it carries the sand underneath. Anything else there, if you do not give room for the water to pass through, then these are the areas that are considered even for insurance. And so most of the time, they have those criteria. Who is meeting the criteria? But they have a responsibility that they have not informed anyone, and nobody has made a case of it. I think even from this discussion, if NEMA were here or the Ministry of Environment, it's time for them to advocate these whole issues about flood insurance. I think that would be a good outcome from here. But I can say generally, most people are not even aware that there's an insurance in existence and how they can tap into it. But ignorance doesn't make you a saint.
Very much, Madam Keaton. Actually, you have talked. You didn't want to, you didn't want to talk, but you have spoken, and you have given us a lot of issues to actually think about. Let me bring in Pastor Bejide here. I mean, she's reeled out a lot of issues here, and let's look at the issue of government warning people and also alerting people, especially those living in the flood-prone areas and all that. How do your organization? Do you actually collaborate with the planning? What's it called that? They call them. What's the name of this? Is it the planning, the environment people? Do you collaborate actually concerning all this information when you have it?
Yeah. In NISA, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, that is NIHSA.
Okay.
We do our work also in what we call the NISA way.
Okay.
NIHSA. 5 things. Number 1, first of all, we do is letter N, notation, just like your guests have said, notation of floodplain in Nigeria. And that's what we roll out as one of our first products, annual flood outlook. The whole Nigeria, we model it. Having collected some data from NIMET, that is a collaboration. We collaborate with NIMET. We take their data, atmospheric data, and we model it. And now we come out with this annual flood outlook. Early in the year, this is how the flood will look like across the nation. To the local government, to the states, the villages, precise. Our prediction as of now is about 80-85% accurate.
Okay.
Even the Meduguri flooding, we predicted it. The difference there is that we say it's going to be moderately flooded.
Okay.
So not up to this massive extent. But we know the reason for this is because of the unusual excessive rainfall. And that it was not foreseen, which is the issue of climate change. And now, because of the vast area from the Mandara Mountains coming from the Cameroon, so with these excessive mountains flowing down towards Sambisa forest, even Sambisa forest, slow it down. If that forest have not been there, oh my God, Meduguri city will have been
wiped off.
So Sambisa forest slowed it down. Now from there, the 2 rivers that is a tributary supplying Lau Dam were overwhelmed, also filled up, and they rushed to the dam. The dam has no problem. Like people have been saying, there's no problem with the dam. The problem is that the dam, we say it's a small dam. Yes, it was a small dam. 6-meter height and everything like that. It's working over years.
But
no problem.
It's silted.
But it's because, yes, but that's not even the issue. If it has been moderately flooding, there won't have been much issue. It's because of the excessive waters that run into it, that overrun also the dam, and the spillway again giving way. Both the flood water coming and the water impounded before in the dam all together. And just about 8 kilometers from Maiduguri metropolis. So you can see the rushing of the water and the devastations, almost half of the city. So that is it. So we have to understand this. So my take actually, like from what she has said, taking FCT for example, and see the attitude of people. Trademore, Lokogoma, Pape, and some area in Karimo, you do axis, will be flooded because they are on the flood plain.
Okay.
They will be flooded. There is no need. Somebody is asking for sensitization and say, do we go to that local level? I say, what sensitization do you need? There is what we call circumstantial sensitization. 5 years ago it occurred, 4 years ago it occurred, 3 years ago it occurred, last year it occurred. You know that this year it will occur. Natural sense will have told that move. Trade more. Now, instead of them to move, what they do is that when it's coming to this period of time, like 2 months ago, they will relocate. They will go to say another place and go and stay with their friends around that October, November, and they will come back again. But that is not the
All right. Okay, Pastor. We'll take a break now. When we come back, the conversation will continue. Maybe I think Claire has some questions for you and also for the prof in Maiduguri. So we'll take a break now. The conversation continues. Stay with us. Oh, okay. You are still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We are still discussing the issue, flood insurance and ecological fund. And before we went on break, Pastor Bejide was, giving us, reading out some of the efforts. But how come that most of the states or governments generally are most times reactive instead of proactive? And there are some states that have already taken steps to checkmate when we have this kind of disasters.
Yes, some states have at least taken the lead, so to say. Others also maybe now they are trying to wake up, where some other states have woken up long time ago and doing the necessary things. Like I said, like Jigawa states, that the Lagos states, Rivers, Bayelsa, even some oil companies. They are also taking proactive measures, like Shell, for example, and things. They were in our office about 5 months ago, asking for the flood outlook. And people will wonder, how does it affect Shell? Of course, they have their own also instruments and equipment also in the ICs and everything to protect. This flood washed it away. Like I said also, I said that when they are talking about flood victims, NEMA, our sister agency, we partner very well. They are giving relief material to people. I say they don't consider us also NISA as also a victim. And Busa, NISA, how can you be a victim?
NISA, Pastor Bejide, NISA can be a victim. Let's talk about it.
Why? Our equipment are so washed away, and these are critical national assets.
No, but you give out the outlook. You should be able to fortify.
Yes.
Charity begins at home.
No. I'm being frank here. There is, he just said it now. There is no, our guest there. There is no proactiveness we have taken sometimes when an heavy flood comes. It is from the underground water and everything, it washes it away. We lost so many equipment in NISA. We lost it. And this equipment, if we cannot quickly replace them to be able to continue this work, it is also disastrous to the nations. Okay. And I need to let
In which state is this?
Even in Borno State now. What affects mitigation as well as an agency, like I mentioned Sambisa Forest now, we can't even go there over time. We have not been able to go because of security issues. Now, some strategic equipment, like what are coming from River Benue now, I talk about Uruboki. We are just like water, immigration, water, what do you call it? We will check water coming in. And it's a national security because that water can be contaminated even from before you enter Nigeria.
Yes, before we take the conversation to Professor Mungunu, who has been waiting, you talked about one of the states that have been applying the flood insurance.
Yes, Lagos State. Lagos State have been applying. They are in partnership with UNDP and United Nations Development Fund and IDF. They have that collaboration, and the Lagos Ministry of Water Resources, we are in close collaboration. They have activated that flood insurance, and it's perfectly working. If you watch their drainages, even 4 months ago, they have cleared their drainages. They understood perfectly the effects of flooding in Lagos and the commercial effect of it. So the Lagos state government are operating as of now flood risk insurance programs.
Thank you. Professor Mungunu, are you still with us? Maiduguri is, of course, Maiduguri is, has a lot to learn from, other states. Recently, the statistics released by NBS, and of course it's out there in the public domain, is that in the month of August, the money released, the ecological amount released, of course, range from 60 to 800 and something million naira per month, and Maiduguri was one of the states that got the second highest allocation for that month. Now, do you think that Maiduguri needs a flood insurance policy standalone, or is there any other way that Maiduguri can also emulate, the example of Lagos to start, to enforce or implement the National Flood Policy Program?
Thank you. Before I go to answer your question, let me assure Pastor Jide that his groundwater station the groundwater station at the University of Maiduguri is safe. It has not been flooded, so that's good news for you. You have one of your stations there. Yes, does Maiduguri require a flood insurance policy similar to that of Lagos, maybe a standalone, or should queue into an existing policy? Yes, it is something that is desirable, but is not practicable. Why I'm saying this is because I really haven't listened to Keaton's submission earlier. I have come to understand that you only can apply the flood risk in a very sustainable manner, take up the flood risk policy in a sustainable manner if people live in fairly raised environments, not entirely flooded areas, like the situation where we have many communities in Maiduguri. I would give you the example she talked about, the Trademore estate. It's like saying every year the people there should come out and get the insurance. I'm sure no insurance company will be very happy to be paying off every year for people who have chosen to live in risky environments. Precisely that is what is happening. So Maiduguri is a relatively flat land, just about 300 meters above sea level, and that has contributed to the flooding issue. In addition to the rivers that overflowed their banks, even the town itself, because of heavy rainfall, especially in the months of July, August, and September, a lot of these communities become waterlogged and impassable. So yes, we may need this flood insurance policy, but it's not something that is practicable in the sense that we have had Dr. Abbas talk, because people many of the communities are already living in flooded environments. And so these are people who, in the first instance, have managed to build, to get roofs over their head, very poor people living in poor conditions. And it is such people that we are trying to say should pay for insurance premiums. This is practically impossible. So I think we may have to look at other alternatives than the policy itself. Asking people to pay for premiums year in, year out may not easily work. We have to look at the environment. It is something that is desirable, like I said, but is not practicable in the real sense. If you look at the conditions, if you look at the environment in which people live, if you look at their socioeconomic conditions. So we must tell ourselves the truth. It's important to have the policy. You are transferring the risk to some other person so that you can cover it and then recoup whatever losses that you have incurred in the event of a flood. But it's not something that is practical.
Thank you. But let's bring in the experts to tell us whether it's practicable or not. Because Dr. Abbas, again, assuming we agree that there's a need for a standalone flood insurance policy, what would it cover? And then what will the premium be based on? How will it be calculated?
Well, thank you very much. The premium will be calculated by the actuaries. We have people that study the calculation of premiums. But it's desirable and it's needed, seriously needed. The issue of paying on yearly basis, yes, insurance is about annual premium. But the insurance will also design they will design something that will protect them from that kind of flood in future. Let me give you an example. Fire insurance, fire of NTA. They will tell you you must have fire extinguisher. Just to protect, in case there is fire, you have something to do. So if there is flood anywhere, insurance will not be paying claims every year, but they will design for them. Okay, this place is a flood-prone area, like Lokoma said. Don't do this, do your gutter very well, do this, do that, and so on and so forth. That is number one. Secondly, insurance can work with government. Government may have their own palliative that they give to people when there is flood. But insurance will reduce it because they are in the business of paying claims. So the government will just be supporting them. Like that NEMA we are talking about, if they assemble 2, 3, 4 insurances with them, if there is any claim anywhere, you are going to pay so much, government will pay this to support. It will be very easy. Instead of burdening our people in business coming to come and donate and this and that. So if government can stand on that NEMA, we need to go to NEMA. That department must be functioning now. Because, like I said earlier, in Nigeria we don't prepare. It is when the thing happens that we do. We should be getting ready for tornado, earthquake.
No, we
will not have it. Yes.
No, we don't
pray for. We don't pray for. Yes, we don't pray for flood.
We don't pray for that, but when it happens,
well, when it
what
happens,
happens?
it is when it happens that we will not be running
Yes, actually.
So we should
That's
get it.
true.
We should get ready. And many of us in Nigeria, we have one notion
We are
that
always
if you
reacting.
insure and you don't have claim for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, so you say there's no need for it. Yes, there's no need for it.
Yes, because the money goes back to the insurance.
Actually, I wanted to ask.
Yes, sir.
Because if you insure, for instance, you've been insuring for maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yes.
And nothing happened.
Yeah.
Can the insurance
claim?
pay something, in return to the
But are you
insured?
dreaming? No way.
You see, I will say,
Because that's what discourages people.
Precisely.
Because I insured last year.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, up to 10.
You see, sir,
and nothing
you
has
don't
happened.
know where it will happen. I've been insuring my car for quite a long time. 2017, I had an accident for the first time. It was write-off. The car was completely write-off. And I have my claims. And up to now, I'm still doing insurance. You don't know when the thing will happen. Like this flood we are talking about, we don't know it will happen like this year. If you go through this trade mall, many times when you are coming from the airport or are going to the airport, it blocks the road. The flood used to block the road, but we don't know it's going to be serious
Okay.
than what we are having before.
Is this insurance that you pay, is it progressive? That is, I mean, for instance, if you have insured for 10 years and nothing happened,
Yeah.
the next time you insure, would you be asked to reduce, or would it be progressive?
They won't, it will be progressive. They won't ask you to reduce.
It will be progressive then.
You continue to pay what
Yes,
you have been paying.
they evaluate.
You reevaluate
Yeah,
and
right.
you pay. You continue to pay what you are paying. So that is just
For
it.
those that the prof mentioned, I mean, the poorest of the poor that live in flood-prone areas that cannot afford this insurance. What advice would you give?
They can avoid the insurance. When you love your property, you secure it. However small, property is being assessed according to how they are. Where you have duplex, what you are going to pay is from where you have a mud brick or something to have a property. So you pay the little according to your house. It's not that you are not going to pay at all. Government may come out to support them if they want. But
would you now suggest the government to come up with a compulsory policy to ensure that those, especially those living in flood-prone areas, are insured?
Yes. We have some compulsory insurance, like motor insurance, building under construction. It's compulsory insurance.
No, we're specifically about those in floodplain.
Yes,
Yes, the government must come out with it and tell them that they have to do insurance so that in case there is any claim, the insurance company will pay them. So they should. However small.
However small. Okay.
Yes.
Let's look at Pastor Abejide, and I'm glad you mentioned this. While we were off camera, you talked about it, but it's very important. The fact that Maiduguri is still standing because of the forests, the trees, and that's why I'm asking, because we also have the Great Green Wall Initiative, which is also a beneficiary of the Ecological Fund. How can that also become a resolution mechanism for flooding?
Yes, I've tried to listen, and also to, like you said, the conversation is very, very inciting and very educative. Yes, my own submission first about flood insurance is that I'm standing on the part of the doctor from Maiduguri. Is desirable, but not practicable, simply for the one single reason, because most of this flooding, most from history, are in the floodplain. So what they need is not flood insurance. I think what they need is people to be evacuated. They must be evacuated. They must leave. If they don't want, then they build flood resilience. I mean, know when to move to the high altitude and come back after the flood have moved. That's number one. Then flood insurance also, I will say, is needed, but not for this type of people, but for critical hydro infrastructures. Like Lau Dam now, if it has been insured, although for 10 years, 15 years, they have been paying, yes, nothing happened. But now it has happened. It will have paid off. It will not have been much burden. So there are critical hydro infrastructures that, as a matter of national policy, governments should, we need more dams. There is no doubt about it now, it's clear. So in building these dams now, they should insure our dams. Nigeria should insure our dams. And if they are insured for any time, anything, eventualities occur.
Pastor Abejide, we just have to cut you there because of our time. Now let's just bring in Kito for the last our last contribution here because of our time. Kito, what would you be your advice, managing this flood disaster in the country?
For the individual first, 3 things I'll suggest for everyone who is a property owner, that first of all, they should make effort to know whenever they have to put up a property that they are secured. And if they choose to now put it in a flood-prone area, then they should just make sure that they do the elevation and then flood proofing, then green infrastructure, and get insurance. That's just personal for them. For government, I subscribe to the idea that all our dams and all flood detention ponds, there's need for assessment, risk assessment on a yearly basis. The rain comes on a seasonal basis. There's nothing wrong that this can be done. All the flood policies speak to this, but I have not seen any time when a risk assessment is done. This is necessary because of the nature of what happened, like in Maiduguri. But another thing I would say for government, that beyond even risk assessment of flood detention or dams, like Pastor said, we need insurance. Insurance is not going to... The people who build near are those rich and they are prepared. For those, there is need to for boats, for just people doing boats, they are doing insurance for boats, and it's 1,000 naira for all the boat guys that are driving the car. Why can't we just engage all those low-income people who built into the houses to have non-cooperative kind of insurance for their own sake? And if that is a mandatory thing, I think that government can push for that. Beyond government doing its risk assessment, wetland restriction is key. We have left our wetland. It's only Lagos State now trying to take over the wetland they allowed people to build. They are taking it over. These are responsibility of government, and I think if we're able to do this, continue. People are building on stilts and they are living inside Bariga water there in Lagos. Building in UK, in Norway, Netherlands, they are living on top of water.
All right.
It's a natural thing and it will continue, but we have to be prepared.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kiton Oluwabuyi, for your contribution there. Definitely, we've had a very robust conversation this morning on the flood insurance and ecological fund. Now, we just want to thank our guests this morning for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. First, let me just thank Dr. Owolabi Abbas. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, all right. And also, I want
Nigeria.
to... Okay, thank you. Also, Pastor Femi Bejide, thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Professor Abubakar Kawu Munguno, thank you so much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And lastly, Kiton Oluwabuyi. Madam, thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you. Well, that has been Good Morning Nigeria for today. Trust you enjoyed it. Join us tomorrow for another interesting edition. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.